So today we are going to start our Impressionist Waterscape. So we are going to be inspired by Monet's work right here. And then this is kind of an example of what we're going to be creating. So we're going to focus on the background today, like the sky, possibly the water. Next week we'll work on the trees with the land and a little bit of land here, and then eventually our boat. So we're just going to focus on this. But I do want you to notice that like the sky here, obviously there's lots of blues and whites. You could use violets, things like that. The bottom here, you will have some yellows and greens for the water, because you want it to be slightly different shades so that it's not all blending as one. Okay, so if we look right here, this is our inspiration by Claude Monet, and he's a very famous Impressionist artist, and he is a Frenchman. So he's one who started Impressionism. And you notice that it's a lot of outdoor scenes, and you'll see lots of wispy, like light brushstrokes. So we just went from realism, where everything was all almost exactly realistic, almost like a photograph, to Impressionism, which is still like realistic in subject matter, but it's a little bit different. It kind of has like that fuzzier quality, and that's where that brushstrokes. So a little fun fact about Monet is one of his very first paintings was called Impressionism Sunrise, and the critics, they labeled the painting Impressionism, and they were trying to mock him. And it stuck, that word Impressionism, and it means means painting with light. So I love that they were kind of making fun of him, and then it became like the term we use today. So Monet was one of the first, if not arguably the first to start Impressionism, but he had a lot of friends during that time that did the same kind of thing as him. So, but I wanted to share that with you. We'll talk more about Monet as we go. So today, you're going to get a piece of paper. It's going to be a large sheet of paper. This is a little smaller just to fit on the screen here. And the first thing we always do, write our name, Mrs. K, and 5- your class code, and then we're going to turn it over. So I have it on a messy mat because we're going to have some paint strokes probably go outside this area. And then I want to also point out that the paper is horizontal. So we don't want it vertical tall for this one. We want to keep it horizontal. So the first thing I'm going to do really, really lightly, I'm not trying to draw details. I'm just going to kind of draw like this space right there. That's where like the island or peninsula, whatever you're deciding to do. Now, you can change it. You don't have to do the exact same thing as me, but I'm kind of basing mine off of his. So his goes all the way up, mine went a little lower. Then the next thing we're going to do is draw this line, the horizon line, and you want to draw that about midway through the paper. So it can be a little bit above the midway, a little bit below the midway, but as long as it's around there, and then you'll have your sky, and this is going to be the water. So we're going to be focusing today on painting the sky and the water, and then we are not going to worry about, we're not going to worry about painting this here or the boat, and the boat will be painted on top of the water, so don't worry, okay? So I have a little paper plate. White is going to be our main tint, and then I have the other colors here that we may use. So my sky, I'm going to probably keep in the violets and blues. The water, I may add some greens and yellows to my blue, and then all of it's going to have white. And I've got a couple different brushes. This one's a flat brush and a round brush. It's just a personal preference, whichever one you like, okay? So I'm going to start off with, I'm going to do the flat brush so you can kind of see what happens with it. And I'm going to start with my sky. And the reason why is I'm going to kind of paint down from top to bottom. One, it's going to keep your hands clean. And two, the water is going to be kind of overlapping the sky, and it'll have a cleaner edge. So whenever you're painting with like the thicker paints, like acrylics, tempera, oils, you want to go from back to front, okay? So we're going to be using the technique called double loading. So with double loading, we're going to start with white, and then we're going to use a little bit of blue. So you can see I have two colors. And then I'm going to do those like kind of wispy lines like Monet's known for. And I kind of go in there. And it's really nice because what's going to happen is you're going to get like some thicker brush strokes and paint. And I think it's going to make it look, whoops, I went the opposite. That's okay. Actually, I kind of like it. So I'm going to go violet and blue. And my idea is just to paint the whole thing. Now, I'm gonna go into just plain white because it's getting pretty dark for me. So I'm just going to plain white, and notice I didn't rinse off my brush. I'm just putting the white on top. So technically I'm not double loading it right now, but there is so much paint on my brush that it's still working. And notice I'm just kind of going off the page, and I'm trying to go kind of left to right. I'm thinking when I do that, it's kind of like the wind blowing. So I'm gonna go double load it again, white with blue. For up here, maybe violet and blue. And then I'm going just straight to the white. If you wanted clouds, you can have those. I pretty much filled that space up real nicely. If I wanted clouds, you could take a paper towel and kind of dry off the brush a little bit, and then go into plain white, and then add where you want the little wispy clouds to be. And I'm just going straight to the white. Okay, and I like that the color is showing through. I think it looks very impressionistic. So it's kind of that fuzzy quality. It's not, we're not trying to make it look perfect. Now I'm gonna move to the water. I'm gonna show you what the round brush looks like. So these are brand new, so they'll get softer as we work. So I'm still using the double loading technique. This time I'm gonna go into the white again. I'm gonna go blue, and I actually went to a little bit of green. And this time, ooh, I need to go a little more blue. I'm gonna kind of make my lines a little bit longer, just so you can see the difference between the sky versus the water. So that's the green, because I think there's a lot of green in water. You can go into double loading white with yellow. But one thing I want you to notice is white's pretty important, okay? White gives it that nice soft quality, and I think that makes it look like more like an impressionist piece. Notice I'm kind of going over this. That's okay, because I'm going to paint that next week when it's dry. And so it will really look nice, and kind of going over it. So I'm gonna go into the green, and then I'm gonna paint. The water, I want it to be a little more filled than I did with my sky. I want it to be like painted completely. So I'm gonna do this triple. I'm really making sure to kind of go overlap some of my areas. And this paint does dry fairly fast, but you should be fine. So I did green and yellow that time. Blue and white. But notice I try to go to the white first. I feel like that works really nicely with this, because white's kind of the main thing I want. So we're not trying to make it a solid same shade of blue, like the same color of blue all along, because I want to see this kind of texture to it. I think it's going to make it look more like the Impressionist, work that we'd see. I'm going to go all the way to the end, or the edge of my paper. And if I wanted to, I could take just blue and maybe do some little lines. Maybe this is just where the wind's blowing, and you see like a little bit of the wind blowing the water, and it kind of like ripples. You can totally add that too, just like little dashes. Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Next week when you come in, we will work on this portion, and then a little bit of the ground here and our sailboat. And then here's Monet's work. That's their inspiration for this piece. So you can see those little wispy lines that I try to recreate, kind of like Monet did right there. So you can definitely tell the difference between the sky versus the water. That's what I'm hoping when you look at yours, you can definitely see where the edge of the sky meets the water. And we'll add a little ground next week to kind of define that a little bit more.